this is me talking as Julia, but if I talk like Ness, like the hands kind of start going. And it just happens.
I love that.
Body gets possessed. It's like very strange.
Cobra Kai. Kidding.
Bonsai, I'm the Cobra Kai Kid, and today I am joined by Julia Macchio, who plays Vanessa LaRusso on Cobra Kai. How are you doing today, Julia?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm honored to say that you were my first interview since the release of Cobra Kai Season 5. So
What? Oh, okay.
I'm pleased to announce that throughout this interview, Julia and I will be raising money for Active Minds, which is a nonprofit organization that supports mental health awareness and education for young adults. Through education, research, advocacy, and a focus on young adults ages 14 to 25, Active Minds is opening up the conversation about mental health and creating lasting change in the way mental health is talked about, cared for, and valued in the United States. You can donate directly through this interview by clicking the big blue donate button under this video. Anything helps. Thank you all for your support. Now I hope you enjoy the rest of the interview.
I'm very honored right now. I'm so excited to talk to you because I know we've like interacted on social media and stuff like that, but I'm excited to hear what you think of the season and all that.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible. It was just everything was about it was great. And seeing you come back, that was brilliant the way they did it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know I keep saying this and I'm going to keep saying it, but the writers of the show just they never miss. And I'm so grateful to be able to come back even in a small way. I didn't expect anything after season 4. I was like, hopefully if the show keeps going, hopefully more seasons come even after season 5. Like I was like, okay, hopefully I come back. But then I wasn't expecting it for season 5 because the show is so big. There are so many storylines and so many new characters as well. So I didn't expect anything, but I'm so grateful. It's been the best time.
How did you find out that they wanted you back for season 5?
So I was actually in Atlanta at the time when I found out that that I was in the episode 509 draft. I had just gotten to Atlanta. I was visiting for my dad's birthday, actually, with my family. And I got the email from my agent saying, hey, just a heads up, like, I'm sure your dad has told you, but you're in the episode 509 draft. And I was with my dad. I was like, did you know this? And he was like, no, they didn't tell me. And so then I ended up having to fly back down there a couple of weeks later to film that episode. So that's how I found out. It was a lovely surprise. And I ended up talking to John Hurwitz, one of the creators of the show, a couple days later after I got that email. And he was explaining to me just the ideas that they had, how it would tie into the Fun Club episode and how, she would be secretly dating Anush. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get to do, because I never would have thought of that, but I love Vanessa and Anush, or Vanush as we like to call them together. It was just great. And Dan is so great. And Brett, everybody, it was just so much fun.
That scene was so funny. I was laughing.
Yeah.
You're dating my sister. It's great.
It's embarrassing the family. I'm like, what are you even talking about? You're like, it was just, honestly, I have never laughed so hard on a set because there was a lot of improv happening that day. There was a lot of ad-libbing, and especially once the fight scene like on the floor like kind of was happening, they would just keep the cameras rolling and we were just like throwing comments out there, and it was so much fun. And it's, everybody, even in the episode, like everyone's letting loose, and so it was a blast. Those couple of days were so much fun. I had the best time.
So like when you weren't filming, like you guys were just dancing, just having fun like that?
Yeah. I mean, what happens, and just for anyone who maybe doesn't know this, like how you film a scene like that or an episode like that, where there are so many extras and there are scenes and dialogue happening, and then obviously fight choreography is happening, but you also have to get a lot of B-roll, which is basically just footage of everybody dancing and having fun. And they play music, but it's not like what you see in the episode. In the episode, it happens pretty quickly, but you have to shoot a lot. And it happens in a lot of different pieces. So there was footage of, when Yuji is, who plays Chosen, is like just coming through the frame and he's just like dancing. And so we were obviously not in the shot for that. So we were watching, like me, Brett, and Dan were watching that happen. And it was so much fun to be with everyone and to have, this season is, I call it Karate Game of Thrones, because it's so big. It's, you have Terry Silver, who's like the ultimate villain. And then you have an episode like 509 where it's just a totally different flavor. So we were having a lot of fun, and there was a lot of laughter and just joking around, but it was so great.
It seemed like it was so much fun. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I want to know, because obviously your dad, Ralph Macchio, very successful actor. So is your dad the reason why you got into acting?
Honestly, the easy answer is no. I think I would have found it no matter what, because when I was little, we're talking like 2-3 years old, I love to watch movies. Like, instead of playing with dolls, like movies, that was my like escapism. That was what I wanted to do in my free time. And I would always watch Disney movies, and I would like act out all of the parts. So I think that was just in my blood really from a very, very, very young age. And that was before I knew that he was an actor. It was before I understood that you could even have an acting career or a dancing career or a singing career. So I guess honestly, not really, because I didn't understand or even know at that point what he did for a living. I didn't even know what a career was. When you're a toddler, you just follow your instincts and what you love to do. And that's just been what I love to do ever since a very, very young age. So no. And then once I understood that he did it as a career, then when I was a little bit older, I was like, oh, okay, this is clearly what I love to do. I would like to pursue this as well. And that's when it became a conscious thing. So no, he's not the reason.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
was my own joy, finding my own joy in that.
Yeah, that's great. And you also do musical theater too. So like talk about like how you got into that and like balancing that with acting.
Yeah. Theater was something that I fell in love with a little bit later. I was always a dancer. I danced from the age of 5. I classically trained in multiple different styles of dance, and I always loved to sing. And I always wanted a career in acting as well. So you put the 3 together, and it kind of makes sense to do theater. After I finished school, I started booking theater roles. And that's kind of how I fell into theater. I wasn't one of those kids who was always in a theater camp. I was not someone I loved theater, and I grew up in New York. So I grew up going to see different Broadway shows and things like that. But I didn't set out to have a career in musical theater. I always was focused more on commercial work. So like acting, and I wanted to record music, and dancing was something I trained very hard in. But theater is something I fell into a little bit later. And then once I realized how much I loved that, I made that conscious choice to like keep pursuing that. But I always was performing for live audiences. Like I said, I was a dancer. So I had competitions and recitals. And I remember at the elementary school that I went to and the middle school, they would do school plays every year. So I did that. It just I didn't train in musical theater. I wasn't like breeding myself to become, it was something I kind of fell into a little bit later.
Yeah. And like in Cobra Kai, like you see like, the training that goes into it. There's a lot of physical training. So I'm curious, as a dancer, like, can you compare like the physical training that goes into that?
Yeah. I know we had a fight scene in 509 where I did the slap and everything
Yeah.
like that. But I have not had, when you compare that to like what the fight choreography of the show is at its peak, it's kind of, you can't really compare it, but I have seen them in rehearsals. I've seen, like when I visited the set, I've seen them film certain fight scenes. And it's amazing what they do. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to rehearse, you got to stretch, you got to show up, you got to put in the work. And it's really hard work. I mean, the stunt team of this show, they're Emmy nominated for a reason. They're so incredible. And the cast is incredible, what they're able to do in a short amount of time, really. I mean, the turnarounds are very quick. So yeah, there are definitely similarities there. It's picking up choreography. It's being respectful of your space and the space of people around you, and figuring it out. But it's different because the difference is you have a camera in your face. And, if you're doing theater, you don't have that. You just have a stage, and then you block it, and then you just do it for your audience. So it's different when you're doing it for film. But yeah, there are definitely similarities there, and it's athleticism. It's hard work. The show, just the stunts get better and better. I'm always so amazed at what they're able to do with that choreography, and everyone works so hard. It's really cool.
Definitely. Cousin Vanessa fight scene in season 6. Let's
hope. Honestly though,
would you be up for it?
I want to. Like, I feel like she would have a fight scene, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. Like, she wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I trained and this style of karate. I just, she's Italian and she's from Jersey. They know how to fight.
Yeah.
She's a tough cookie, and I love her. I love her for it.
Yeah, I want to know about the accent. Like, how long did it take to get that accent down, and how did you prepare for getting into the character?
Yeah, the accent didn't take too long. My homework was to watch what Brett had done in the show. Brett, who plays Louis, Ness's brother. So it obviously has to be believable that these two grew up together and interact, and they bicker, as siblings often do. So I remember when I had a Zoom call with the 3 creators of the show, John, Josh, and Hayden, before I filmed episode 408, they said, they have to be 2 peas in a pod. So my homework was essentially to watch videos of Brett in the show, and kind of get his mannerisms and get the level of his accent. It didn't feel like I had to do a ton of work to find it. I mean, I am Italian, and I grew up in New York, like I said. So I mean, on the spectrum of Italian Americans, I'm not quite at the level that Cousin Ness is at, but I have an understanding of that, and it's something I can tap into very easily. So it didn't take a ton of work, but I did my homework in making sure that hopefully she and Louis would feel like a seamless interaction, because he's already an established character on the show, and she was being introduced 4 seasons in. So I didn't want it to feel like, oh, this is like an SNL interpretation. Like, she feels out of place, even though she is out of place. Their world needs to feel organic. So that was my homework, and how I kind of found the level of the accent. And then once the accent is down, the mannerisms just kind of, the physicality of it starts, like, this is me talking as Julia, but if I talk like Ness, like, the hands kind of start going, and it just happens.
I love that.
Your body gets like possessed. It's like very strange. So that kind of came naturally once the accent was in place.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you do such a great job, because I mean, as you mentioned, you came in season 4. All of these characters, like the whole LaRusso family, was already established. You have to come in and like make it like, oh, I've been a part of this family, and you're there. You're a LaRusso.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I always knew, I think I spoke about this in another interview that I did for last season, but I always knew that if I was going to be somehow a part of the show, that I would be a LaRusso, I would be a family member, because the writers and the creators of the show just felt that because I'm related to my dad and people know that we're related and we look so alike, they felt it would be strange to have me be a part of the show somehow, but not be a LaRusso.
Yeah.
So this is just something that made sense. And they, like I said, they never miss. The writing is just so incredible. And I remember when I had heard the idea for this character before season 4 started filming, obviously, but until you have a script in front of you, you don't really know the tone, you don't know specifics. And then when I finally got it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be just so much fun to play with. And I love being Ness, because she's just so the way I see her is like she's so unapologetically herself, even though she is a stereotype, but then at the same time she's not. And it's so fun to be her. It's like you kind of can't go too big with a character like that. And it's fun. It's a different flavor.
Yeah. So what was it like working with your dad? Like, I want to know because I mean that scene, like you're really like berating him on his parenting skills. Like that must have been fun, like especially because he's your dad. You're like kind of making fun of it. Like, what
Yeah.
was that like?
It was very meta. I mean, we have such a great relationship. I'm very close with everyone in my family. And again, it comes down to great writing. And it was great. I mean, that was the first time that we had ever worked together on screen. We had done one show together on a stage called Celebrity Autobiography. And we had done that together before, but that's a show that's very much for your audience and you're reading other celebrities' autobiographies. It's kind of like sketch comedy. This was the first time that we were acting as like not playing ourselves, acting as other characters on screen. But it was when we were doing it, it was very we were in the moment, we were focused on the work. We weren't like between every take, like, oh my God, can you believe this is happening? That hit me later, like after I had wrapped when I was flying back home. And I was like, did I just do that? I mean, you get the script a couple weeks before, then before you know it, you're flying down, you're filming, it's all happening, and then it's over. So the emotions hit me later. But it was great. He's a joy on and off screen. I love him to death, and getting to work with Courtney and even Randy Heller, like it was just an amazing experience. Everyone was so welcoming. It felt like just hanging out and working with my friends. It really was incredible. Sometimes you worry about working with people that you know, because sometimes it's like it can be more intimidating. But I found it just so comforting, and it was just such a great time. We had a blast.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what's it like seeing Mary Mauser who plays Sam being the daughter of your dad? like what is that like? Is it kind of weird to watch that?
It's No, because she's so good at it. I mean,
Yeah.
we've gotten close. She's so great in that role, and I think her arc this season in particular is so fabulous. And so no, it's not weird. I mean, I guess because I'm an actor and I just know that it's not real, but we call each other sister from the same Mista. Um,
Yeah.
and fun fact, we're actually the same exact height. Like we found
Oh, wow.
down to the quarter inch. We are the same height. So it's a sign. But she does such a great job with that role. And so is it weird? No, it's not weird. I love their interactions on the show. They've had some really beautiful moments. And I just everyone is so good. Everyone's so good. So no, it's not weird. It's really heartwarming. And they have a great relationship as well. And she's gotten close with my family. So it really is a love fest between everybody. Everyone is just so wonderful that works on the show. Cast, crew, creators, everybody. It's just a big love fan fest.
Yeah. So I found this really cool. When I spoke to Drew Gasparini, the
Yeah,
composer of the Karate Kid musical, he
love
told
Drew.
me, yeah, he told me that you guys worked together before he was even announced as the composer. So can you talk about
Yes.
how you met him, how that came to be, and how you found out that he was going to be writing the Karate Kid, the musical?
Yes. So I love Drew. He's so talented. And we were working together on a show called Skittles, the Broadway musical. This was back in 2019, I want to say, like early 2019, in like January, February. And we were doing a cast recording one day of that show. So we were like in a studio all day. And he told me, he was like, so he figured out who I was. Cause I didn't say, I don't go around being like, hi, I'm Julia Macchio. But he figured it out. And he came up to me during our lunch break and he was like, so I'm writing the music. I'm composing the music for the Karate Kid musical. At that point, I don't think I even knew there was going to be a Karate Kid musical. And we were like, how funny is this? He was like, yeah, I just got off the phone with Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the, Karate Kid films and helped to write, he wrote the musical as well. But it was just like, how bonkers is that? And we've stayed friends, we've stayed in touch. So that's how I found out. It was when we were working together on that show. in New York City. It's wild. It's such a small world and an even smaller industry, but I love that they're making that into a show, and I think are staying very authentic, very true to the Japanese culture. And I think it's going to be, what people don't necessarily expect from an 80s, movie turned musical. I think if Drew has anything to do with it, it's going to be incredible, because he's so talented, such a down to earth guy. So yeah, that's how I found out that he was involved with it.
Yeah. Did your dad tell you a bit about it? Because I know he saw it.
Yes, he kept, he didn't like give me the whole, I want to be surprised
Yeah.
when I eventually can see it. But I know that he loved it. He really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad that he was able to go. I was hoping to get there, and then because of scheduling, I was working on a show here in New York. I couldn't get there. But he loved it. But no, he didn't give too many details, because he knows that I want to see it. So I want to be able to go in with fresh eyes and not have any, I don't want to know too much.
Definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're not working, what kind of stuff do you like to do for fun?
I I love to read. Um, I love to listen to music. I like to write in my spare time. I love going to see films. One of my favorite things to do is going to a movie theater and seeing a movie. Um, I'm a very creative person, even in my free time. So anything that has to do with art and like any kind of healthy escapism, that's probably what I'm doing. Reading, listening to music, writing, and then occasionally going to see a really good film. And spending time with family and close friends. I think human connection is something that we all need it, and we've kind of been lacking in that since the start of the pandemic. So really prioritizing quality time with people that are closest to me. That's what I like to do when I'm not working.
That's great. Always the creative mind flowing.
Always, always.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. That's why I love what I do, and it's fun. Like when I'm working, it's fun for me. I'm always trying to learn and stretch the creative muscle in as many ways as I possibly can. But even in my spare time, it's important to find the joy in it too, and like have that kind of almost childlike curiosity. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious, do you have any like acting goals or personal goals for yourself right now, things that you're working towards?
Um, I guess just to surprise myself. I never want to be too comfortable in my work. I like to be comfortable in life, but maybe not I'm not like the biggest risk taker, but I do want to continue to kind of branch out and surprise myself with what I can do. And I want to continue to, I've always been a writer. Since I'm little, I've always loved to write, whether it was like poetry or things like that. And I keep it for myself, but maybe one day I'll share it with the world. That's something I'd like to get more into, is writing as well, and creating stories and telling stories. So yeah, just surprising myself and learning more about myself through my art, I guess, is the general goal. And to never lose the joy. That's like the ultimate, you know, I never want to be working so hard that I forget why I started doing it in the first place. So maintaining that.
Definitely. I was gonna ask you, like, has there been like like what's been the biggest lesson or takeaway for you from being in the industry? Would you say like, being like joyful with it, or is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning. I'm learning every day and with every job that I do. But I guess, what we were talking about before, like about me being a kid and like watching movies and acting out all the movies before I even knew that it could be a career path. I
Yeah.
guess that's the biggest. I try to always maintain that level of, oh, I love to do this. And that drive, and that, like, when you're a kid, you follow your instincts. You don't think, okay, well, what about, I mean, obviously when you're an adult, you have more responsibilities, you have bills to pay, you have obligations. So it's different than when you're 2 to 3 years old. But to never lose sight of that joy and what's good for your soul. I guess I always try to remember that every day. And that's not just in the entertainment industry, that's in anything. Find what brings you joy, and don't lose that. I would say that's probably if I had a mantra, that would probably be it. So
that's great. I think people listening will really connect to that. I do personally. So
oh, good. It's important. It's hard to do. I mean, when something is
yeah,
work and it's not always so easy, but if you can always like return to that and like remember why you started, I try to, balance. It really, that's what I'm learning. And I try to do that every day.
that's great. That's great. So do you have any upcoming projects, anything else that you're working on that fans can look forward to?
So it actually just came out. I just did an episode of a show called City on a Hill. It's on Showtime with Aldous Hodge and Kevin Bacon. That was so much fun. I think the episode just aired. It might have even, I think it came out the same weekend that Cobra Kai season 5 came out.
Oh, cool.
And then I filmed for a show called Gravesend. That should be coming out, I believe, early 2023, I'm told. But I'll post more of that on my social media once I have dates, but you can look out for that as well. That's a really fun one.
Yeah. So where can people find you on social media? How can they follow you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and Twitter, Julia _Macchio, I believe, on both. But yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I'm fairly active on both, even though I try to be disciplined with myself in terms of like how much social media I take in, because it can be like overstimulating. But I am on both of those if you'd like to follow me on my journey.
That's great. You heard it. You heard it right here. Julia Macchio, Vanessa LaRusso. Julia, thank you so much for joining me. It was such a pleasure talking to you. You're such a great person. You have a very kind personality. I could just like see the goodness, and like you have a lot of good stuff going for you. I love the creative mind. Just I'm excited to follow you on your journey.
Yes,
And
thank you so much.
of
Thank
course,
you.
and
And
let me
thank
know
you for what you do. Thank you for having, doing what you do and engaging with people that are watching the show. And we're all just so appreciative of people that love the show and find meaning through this whole franchise. The Cobra Kai / Karate Kid fandom is just, there's no other like it, really. So thank you for what you do too.
Thank you so much, Julia. I appreciate that. And let me know if you've got any things going on in the East Coast. I'll be sure to come check it out and support. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time on Cobra Kai Kid.
Cobra Kai never dies. You heard it here first. Well, maybe not first. You heard it here 1,000th time.
1,000th time. There you go.